Hello, Wendy. How are you doing?
Hello, good, thank you.
Great. And how have you been enjoying the change of seasons in the garden?
Oh, it's quite beautiful. We've got still beets and roots and carrots, and generally the dishes I make are always with what we've got. So the things that we've still got, I'm using, and we've gathered in the elderberries and the rose hips
Mm,
and the brambles. So
yeah.
maybe depending on if you're a bit further north, I think there's still some brambles about. So nothing wasted.
Yeah. So what's no longer in your garden now that we're getting a little bit of the colder nights?
Well,
What's
this is the
gone?
very
What
end.
actually-
Yeah, this is the very end of the chard. So it's the last. The
Mm,
last chard is in tonight's dish, and the leeks. We had baby leeks, and they didn't grow so large this year. So we've actually scoffed the lot. So today, Busa was planting the Shetland kale. So he started the
oh,
planting
brilliant.
for next year. So it's all nature's cycle.
Fantastic. So what can
He's the green fingered one. I just cook them.
you just cook them? Yeah. What can we look forward to tonight then?
Well, I thought we'd do vegetarian tonight. While there's still all these lovely fresh vegetables, and of course you can preserve them, you can freeze them in different ways, but just making the most of it because I don't think there's any point in doing a a vegetarian program in the starvation months of February and trying to kid on them from the garden when they're not. So, by that time, you're really into the freezer and the fermented and the pickles and things. So, we can do something like that maybe later on. But I thought, let's make the most of the harvest.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just so fresh. It's such a wonderful time of the year. Here in Barcelona, it's mushroom season,
Oh,
and we've got like 5 or 6 varieties of mushrooms every year, and they just taste incredible. It's kind of my favorite culinary time in Barcelona. But I thought the dishes you did were absolutely fantastic. And as you know, I'm a vegetarian, so I loved the three of them, especially the pumpkin soup. And so many people will have what could be leftover pumpkin, but can now go into a coop. So I thought it was just absolutely perfect timing wise for our episode. So if you're ready to go, let's get started. Now, Wendy will be in the chat. So any questions, any comments on tonight's meals, and please do drop them in. And Wendy might drop in an extra hint or tip on what she's cooking for you tonight. But enjoy the next 20 minutes of some wonderful courses of vegetables, Scottish vegetables.
I'm Wendy Barrie, welcome back to the Scottish Food Show, and today we're going to do vegetables. There's still lots of fresh vegetables about, and of course roots will store all winter, and it's up to you to do wonderful things with our local vegetables. We don't need the airports and the planes full of food flying in. We've got wonderful produce right here on our doorstep. And I think the only thing today that isn't local is a few ground almonds. And if you want to get out there foraging, you can probably do ground hazelnuts instead, and it would work beautifully. So we're going to start off with our roasted roots and peas meal dumplings. So I've got the roots in here, and what I did to start with was you can use whatever you like, but I have used parsnips from our garden. And the other vegetables, I've got red onion, I've got carrot. They're from our dross in Fife here. And I gave them a lovely roast with some of the rapeseed oil to start with, seasoned them, and then added some canned tomatoes. That's another import. I've sinned twice. But it gives us a lovely rich sauce. And this has been just simmering away. So I've roasted them first just to give them a bit of colour, a little bit of caramelising, and then just added the canned tomatoes. 2 cans for this amount, a nice generous amount. And they're simmering now on the stove. So they're just nice and juicy, a bit sloppy, because I want a little bit of moisture in there, because I'm going to put dumplings on top. And the dumplings are made with peas meal. So all these recipes are going to be on scottishfoodguide.scot, so you can find the recipes there. But there's 100 grams of plain flour and 100 grams of peas meal. Now, peas meal is a roasted yellow pea that Michael at Golspie Mill grinds down, and they're quite a rare old-fashioned kind of thing. And so they're on the Slow Food Arc of Taste because of that. And they're tasty. They're also very yellow when you cook them. So when you crumb fish, for example, in peas meal, you get this wonderful vibrant colour. And the same for these dumplings. And you're getting pea protein. So you're getting nutrition, you're getting colour, you're getting flavour. So it's a really handy ingredient to mix in with things. I've put in a little bit of baking powder to give it some lightness, and a little bit of blackthorn salt from Ayrshire, blackthorn salt. And lastly, I'm going to add a little bit of herbs. And what we have in the garden today still is some oregano. So that's the one I'm going to use. If I had some fresh chives or some parsley, that would be lovely. So it's entirely up to you. So pop those in as well. And we have a lovely mix. And that's all we're going to do apart from the liquid, obviously. I should have said also that when I made this, I added some herbs. Again, it can be your choice. If you have chives or parsley, that's great. I make a mix with our marjoram and rosemary and bay and grind it together. So beside the cooker, I've got, you know, a little mix of sort of mixed herbs that I can just fling into something like that. Now, what you need for this is a liquid, and classic ingredient for this is milk. Now, today's recipes are all vegetarian, so I've gone totally vegetarian today. And of course, some of you might not want to have dairy in your vegetarian, you might be vegan. And if that is the case, this recipe can very easily be vegan if you use some kind of non-dairy liquid that we won't call MILK, but you know what I mean. I like my milk in this house. So you want it to be a kind of dough consistency. But as I say, it will be equally delicious with another liquid added. And just add it gently because you don't want to overdo it. That would just make a bit of a mess. So you've got flour, blackthorn salt, peas meal, some nice herbs, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder for this 200 grams. And I'm using a palette knife because it mixes well, and I can see now that's exactly what I'm wanting. That's just a nice kind of doughy scone consistency. And the palette knife not only allows me to mix the ingredients, but I can clean off the knife too. So I've got everything that I want in the bowl. And what I want to do now is go a bit Old Alliance on you with some quenelles and pop the quenelles on top of the mixture. So you need to have the mixture simmering and just use the spoons to drop them on the top. And they do puff out a little bit, so make them a little bit apart from each other. And you can do this on a dish, one of these ovenware dishes like I have in the corner here, one of these sort of casserole types, and it works beautifully in the oven. But I thought if I did it on the hob, you would see what I'm up to. And these will take about 10 minutes. So you do them in the last 10 minutes of cooking. And it saves you peeling spuds that day. You've got a lovely finished meal that you can take straight to the table. Put them on. Very important if you're doing it on the hob that you have a pan with a lid. And the other thing is that if you would like, you can make this really fiery hot with chilies. And Sheena at Galloway Chilies will supply you with lovely Scottish grown chilies. So that's another option to give them a real kick and a nice fiery sauce for a winter night. Now be sure to put the lid on and keep it simmering, and these will cook by the end of the show. Next thing on the go is a little roulade. We're going a little bit posh here, but it's so lovely and easy, and again with vegetables, some cheese this time, and what we've got is 3 egg yolks, 3 egg whites, ready beaten. We've got 75 grams-ish of Jane's St Andrews Farmhouse cheese, a really mature cheese. Go for a mature farmhouse cheese. So if not Jane, there's Isle of Mull, there's a lovely one at Loch Arthur. So they're all over Scottish Cheese Trail. You can find them on the website. I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of yogurt, and I have looks a little bit pathetic sitting in there because it always shrinks down, but this was about 75-100 grams of spinach. Now you can use chard, spinach, watercress, whatever you've got that's in season. And in fact, any greens would do, so long as you wilt them first. So these have been wilted in a little bit of water, a little bit of butter, sorry, and they're just their own liquid and drained, and they're cool now, but that doesn't matter, that's fine. So we're going to add in the egg yolks. Pop them in. And this is a very quick dish actually, and it only takes 10 minutes in the oven as well. So, and then we're going to add in the natural yogurt and James cheese, a little bit of blackthorn salt, a little bit of pepper. Oh, pepper's over there, out of shot. We'll just pretend the pepper went in. Mix that together. Oh, what I should have said was, once you've cooked your leaves, the easiest way to kind of chop up cooked leaves is to dive in there with a pair of kitchen scissors and just snip away in the pan. Works a treat. So they're coarsely chopped. And there's our mixture. And that goes into the egg whites. Now fold it in, because you've got this lovely air trapped and you don't want to lose it, because that's the charm of it. You've got a lovely light souffle. At Christmas time I often put in some chopped chestnuts as well, and it makes it a little bit more substantial and a bit more Christmassy. It's ready to go. Now you might think she's used that paper before. You'd be quite right. We recycle in this house. It's only had the previous roulade in it, so waste not, want not. So this goes on the tray and into the oven for about 10 minutes. So I need to try and remember to keep an eye on this. Spread it out a little bit like that. So it has cheese and chard and the egg yolks. That goes in the oven. And the yogurt. But the recipe is on the website. This, you can hear, is bubbling away, and these are puffing up, which is really lovely. I'm so pleased about that. Now a roulade is a really simple, straightforward thing to do, so long as you've got beaters and you can, or the energy to whip up the egg whites. And you can do sweet ones or savoury ones, and you could add any vegetables. So you could do something lovely with serving it with some honeyed parsnips is a lovely way of using parsnips, and serve it with roulade. And the colour comes in the middle. And today I'm going to use cranberry sauce for the middle. It works beautifully. And when you're rolling up a roulade with a sauce that won't melt, you can roll it up when it's warm. And if you're not eating it right then, you can wrap it in tin foil and then just reheat it when you're ready to serve. So you're not trying to cope with that if you've got people in the house and you're busy. So you can reheat it. It'll flatten a little bit, but not very much. So now you might have noticed Percy Pumpkin over here, my latest attempt. It is that time of year, and the fields of Fife are full of these things. And you know, they may be a sort of slightly American tradition, but if you're old enough to remember trying to dig out a turnip for a tumshy lantern, you'll be very relieved to see pumpkins growing very happily all over Fife. And you, of course, apparently the amount of waste food from pumpkin carving is horrific. And I would never dream of throwing out the flesh from inside the pumpkin. So of course what you do is you do something lovely with the pumpkin. And the pumpkin puree can be roasted. You can make a fantastic soup with it. You can make a pie with it. You can use it to stuff other vegetables. You can just enjoy the pumpkin in all sorts of ways. So it's not difficult to gouge it out. You can use a sturdy butter baller or a sturdy spoon, an old spoon that you won't bend, and just keep digging away. And it's really very easy. And then once you've dug away, then you can of course have a little bit of fun, and you can post your pictures on Instagram, tag Indie Live, and let me see your magnificent efforts. It will be better than mine. And remember to give it a chimney so that the hot smoke can come out. And once you've got your inside for your soup, it's easier to carve the outside because it's a thinner surface. So the soup is over here, and for the soup I have first of all put a little bit of rapeseed oil. I've got Supernature rapeseed oil here from Midlothian, and I roasted the pumpkin and some onions. And you can use a vegetable stock if you happen to have been cooking vegetables, or you have a vegetable stock on the go. If you're a foodie and you do that, that's great. But what you'll never find anywhere in this house, you can search tomorrow, is a stock cube. Because really, stock cubes, in my humble opinion, are a bit of a rip-off, because you're getting predominantly salt and we have salt, and some herbs for the umami. And of course you can do that yourself. You don't need a stock cube to do that. So we use what we have in the garden. We have the oregano, we have the chives. You can use a mixed herbs. You can put in a little bit of chili, but you don't need a stock cube. So the soup, the vegetarian soup, is made with water and lots of our herbs and salt and pepper. If it wasn't a vegetarian one, you might well have a chicken stock on the go. But again, if you don't have something natural, don't waste your money on the stock cube, in my view. You didn't need it. You're just going to be paying a lot of money for salt and packaging. So that's all I've done. Added the water. And the other thing that I've added for a little kick, and as I say, if you want to, you can add some chilies as well. I've used a generous tablespoon of my own apple chutney from the garden. So that just gives it a little something, which, you know, if you're trying to kind of create a stock, it gives it something for a vegetarian dish. Totally vegetarian. It's just apples and onions, a few dried fruit, and brown sugar and vinegar. So, you know, an easy chutney. If you don't make your own chutney, there's a lovely company called Galway Lodge and Huntley Herbs that both do beautiful chutneys in Scotland. So you can buy their chutneys and support local businesses, and it'll give your soups just a little kick. I do the same with a risotto. I add a nice spoonful of chutney, and sometimes to something like this dish here. So it's a very handy thing to have in the house, and pop a spoonful in just to give things a wee kick. How's this doing? Oh yes, it's coming along. Now if we want to give it a bit more juice in this house, that turns the oven up a little bit. And we'll stick in another log. There we are. And if we take a little peep, you'll see these are coming along rather nicely. So I thought that we sometimes don't eat enough vegetables in Scotland, and we have so many super vegetables that it was a good time to devote a programme to the humble veg. And we haven't done the brassicas today. I think we stuffed kale leaves the other day for our show on Indie Live, but I think that was Food Sovereignty Day. But the brassicas are still around, so you can do lovely dishes with the brassicas. There's a few on my website if that appeals to you. And it's good to eat vegetarian food as well, but always think about the balance in nutrition and make sure that you're getting enough goodies. There's a great restaurant called Henderson's opened in Edinburgh with vegetarian dishes for you, and I'm sure you've got a vegetarian restaurant near where you live as well. There's quite a trend to enjoy good food. But I think sometimes what annoys me with vegetarian restaurants is that sometimes they have a lot of imported food, and we don't need to have imported food to have great vegetarian dishes here in Scotland. So the knack is to use our lovely local produce and then enjoy good vegetarian food. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a bit of paper here, cleaned it this time, and I've got these ground almonds. Now this is for the roulade when it pops out, and it gives it a lovely coating, gives it a lovely flavour, but it also stops it sticking. It's a nice kind of, it's a little bit like when you do a Swiss roll and you put caster sugar. So I've used ground almonds because I had them in the house, but as I say, if you want to, if you're a forager and you're out there, you could grind your hazelnuts and do something that's Scottish as well. So that is ready, and keep an eye until it's toasted on top, which is coming along. Meanwhile, I'm going to tell you a little bit about these. The final addition to my pumpkin soup is some lovely roasted pumpkin seeds, so nothing is wasted. So what I did for these was, they just pull out of the pumpkin, and I popped them in a pan, boiling water for 10 minutes, just to soften them a little bit and cook out some of the kind of rusky rind on them. Then they got tossed for about 5 to 10 minutes in rapeseed oil, just a little bit of rapeseed oil, and then finally in salt. So these are like roast peanuts or something, except they're local and they're delicious, and they can go on top of the soup. So that's the other thing that we've done here. Now, I think these are ready. For the last few minutes of cooking, you can take off the lid, because it's quite nice if they just get a little bit of dry on the outside and get a little bit crusty. So that's what we're doing there. And these now I can see are lovely and puffy and set. And I'm just going to let them dry a little bit off and they will be ready to go. I will do the rolling out last. And here we have our pumpkin soup. Now, if you're not bothered about dairy, a lovely swirl of cream is definitely something that we enjoy in our household here, but it's not essential. Now, there's no thickening added to this. This is absolutely pure pumpkin and onions and herbs, and it's really delicious. But if you like it thicker, or you want to, you can add a potato to it, or you can add a little bit of cornstarch if you want to. But you can see it's not necessary. It pours beautifully, and then on the top goes a few of the seeds, a little crunch on the soup. So that's our first dish ready, a pumpkin soup. Our second one is now ready, and you can see we have got a lovely juicy mix. It's got a lovely sauce, and it's got these lovely peas meal bright yellow dumplings on top. So it's a ready meal. And sometimes if I've added chilli, I'll maybe serve it with a little bit of yogurt on the side. But it's absolutely ready to go, and a delicious dish. Now, I'm not sure if this is quite ready yet. We shall see. With a bit of luck it should be, but let's see. Oh yes. So now you can see it's got a great colour, hasn't it? Really lovely with the green from the spinach. Now this is, we just have to do a little flip here. There we are. Not quite so clever, but we'll get there. Now, pull that back. And somewhere. This will do. Now, that was not my finest moment, but never mind, that's what cooks have to deal with. So I'll just move that back there. And then tip that there. There we go. Ta-da! And we fill it with the cranberry. Now, normally about 4 spoonfuls. If you put usually 4 spoonfuls down the edge and then spread it across. If you overdo it, you think you're being mean, but if you overdo it, it all oozes out, and that's not too good. So it actually adds up to quite a lot and quite saucy in the end. Now, you use your paper to help you roll it, like so. And when you get to the bottom, turn it under and give it a little cover. Just helps it there. Like so. And there we have it. Now, I did have a palette knife somewhere, but anyway. Ah, there it is. Thought I brought it down. Put it over there. And here's one I did just half an hour ago. So that we had one ready. And we'll put the other one beside it. There we are. And they are two lovely chard and cheese roulades. So 3 dishes to tempt you to have a night vegetarian. Chard and cheese roulade, pumpkin soup, and roasted roots with peas meal dumplings. Enjoy. Thanks folks.